So what's your favorite part of Christmas? You only get
Oh,
to celebrate
jeez.
Christmas every other year, so you have to be extra
That's right.
selective.
I have to be extra selective. Um, Asking me to pick my favorite one thing of anything is probably like the worst thing you could do to me.
I hate that
I
question.
cannot.
When people ask me like what's your favorite food, my mind goes blank and I can't think of any food at all. Or they're like, what's your favorite movie? It's like I have to like see stuff. You know what I mean? I have to see stuff that reminds me of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it's like the context. It's like, well, are we talking dessert? Are we talking snack food? Are we talking meal food? Because I have different ideas for each of them.
Yeah. My
So,
mind still
my
goes
favorite
blank.
thing about Christmas, I would say, if I'm looking big picture, it would be like all the little things that I get to do with my kids, right? To like build those traditions. So I love decorating icing cookies. Like that's what I did with my family growing up. Rather my grandmother did it, and then she eventually got to a certain age. She was like, screw all of you. I'm not doing it anymore. It's too much work. So I started doing it. And now the kids like it. Um, it's, picking out the tree and decorating it and like just having those little moments of preparation and stillness together, um, and building these memories.
Yeah.
Because when I think back on like what do I remember fondly about my dad, he's still alive, thank God. But like, what do I remember fondly about my dad? There's many things, but it's always the times we spent together, like him coaching me in soccer or how special he made Christmas, like it's those things. So
Yeah.
yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I love just like the season. I love it's hard it would be hard for me to pick any one thing. Um I love the atmosphere of like the Christmas
Mhm.
season. So like even just like getting a coffee and the it's a Christmas coffee cup, like
Yeah, fun, right?
because I don't even buy coffee out. I make coffee at home, and so I don't even buy coffee. But during Christmas, I go to the coffee shop like 3 or 4 times a week just for the cup. And yesterday I tried somewhere new, and well, it wasn't somewhere new, but I went there. I hadn't gotten anything Christmassy from them yet, and so I went and I ordered a Christmas drink. It was like a sugar cookie latte. It was on like their seasonal menu, and it wasn't in a Christmas cup. And I was like, do you guys have a Christmas cup? And I like gave it back to her and she poured it into a different cup. Because I was like, literally the only reason why I'm buying this
Whole
coffee is the
experience
cup.
for
Like I
you.
just love like having it in my hand and like, oh, it's
Yeah.
Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, look, Ray,
Yep.
like,
There you go.
I have my holiday mugs I get out and I trade out my other mugs because there's no space for all of them in
Yeah.
the cabinet.
That's so funny.
So,
Yeah, I just
um,
love like driving, like if you go anywhere and there's Christmas decorations, like here where I live, they actually do a really good job. Like the city does a good job of like all the different like neighborhood signs and different like landmarks are all decorated and like medians in the on the roads are decorated and have a bunch of stuff. So like I just love like seeing that everywhere. And
yeah, it's beautiful.
everywhere that you go, like something's in the window or there's lights or
Yeah,
something.
it's bright and happy and
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, I went to
Um,
the gym this morning and so I've been working out for like 15 years or more, probably 20 years now. And my lower body has always like not been I've never seen like the results proportionately to my
yeah.
body. And I think a lot of men like struggle with that.
Yep.
But what I found now, and so it's like my area of like most focus, which makes it even more frustrating, right? Because I don't see
Not
the
see
results
results.
from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super frustrating. And then I go through these phases where I get really discouraged and like, and I don't even want to like try anymore. You know what I mean? Because I've been working so hard at it and I haven't
Yeah.
seen any like results or return. Or I mean, I have seen results, but just not the results that I want for the effort that I've invested. Because I think about
Right.
because it's holistic, right? It's more than just the workout. So not only have I like built the workout, which takes a ton of time to figure out the science behind like when you do certain things and for how long and what iterations and what
Yep.
order. That took me a long time to build that out. Then building out like the nutrition and the recovery behind it.
Yep.
And it's very like holistic on what you have to do. So
Yeah, it's a
I just think,
science. It really is a science. So
yeah. And there's a lot more to it. Like I said,
complex.
like
It's
a
very
lot of it has
complex.
to do with your diet.
Yeah,
So,
your body type, all of it.
yeah. And I think that what helps people, so when I get discouraged and want to give up, which I never do, but it's like, but I want to. I think about like, I don't want to do it today. And the reason why I'm thinking I don't want to do it today is because I haven't seen the results that I want. And so I think at work, like in order to keep people engaged, you have to have small wins.
Yeah.
You have to have small wins to like, get them to the next level. And I'm just thinking like for an organization, a lot of people, I think the reason why a lot of people don't invest in their culture or have a plan for it, they just kind of let it drive itself, is because they think like the results can be intangible, right? Like a CEO or
Hmm.
spends a lot of money on something, but it doesn't really move the needle. And so maybe they decide like, well, I'm just gonna kind of let things go. Like our culture is our culture, it's our personality, and just kind of let things go instead of taking the time and the effort to invest in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm curious to hear from you, like what kinds of small wins can companies create, through investing in their culture where they would see either whatever it may be, a better hiring or better employee engagement, or like what are the stepping stones?
Ooh, it's a multi-pronged question, or rather answer. But it's funny because when you were describing that, I'm a nerd and I was already in my head like, ooh, we could turn this into like a strengths-based HR conversation, right? Like how important it is to focus on leveraging your strengths and not just focusing all your energy on leveraging your weaknesses because your weaknesses are your weaknesses for a reason. And not that that's an excuse to let them like take over, but it can feel very discouraging to focus on something that you're not naturally gifted in, right? Because it's just a bigger lug. It's hard.
Yeah. I did
So,
have one of my early mentors told me that it was smarter to focus on your strengths than focusing on your weaknesses. But it kind of
yeah.
depends. I feel like it depends on your industry and your company, whether or not that's valid or not. But
I mean, I would argue it's valid for everybody. It's more whether you're matched in the right industry,
mhm.
right? Like if you're in a role that you enjoy, and let's say you're a project manager, but you're not naturally organized and you're not naturally like communicative, and you might still be good at your job, but you're using a lot of strength and energy to um, to conduct that role. And you probably will have little misses here and there that are really frustrating to you because they're not strengths. And so even though you're focusing really heavy on like making sure you don't drop balls, um, it's going to be a heavier lift. Whereas if you find something that you're naturally good at, you're going to be more engaged. It's going to come easier, right? You're going to excel more. Um, and so I always say, like, have the discipline to understand your weaknesses and be always working on them, but try not to focus most of your energy leaning into your weaknesses, right? Try to position yourself from a place of leveraging your strengths, because then you're going to be far more efficient and effective because you're working from your strengths and you're using that extra energy you have saving from working on your strengths to focus on working on your weaknesses and not letting those weaknesses undermine your accomplishments, right? So anyway, I digress. But um culture, small wins. I mean, let's go from there, right? Like I think a small win is introducing strengths-based conversations, and a strengths-based culture, because there's so much out there in terms of resources. It makes people feel really good. It makes them feel empowered. It gives them, like, why take a strengths test? Okay, well, one is that you don't know what you're strong in, not necessarily, but there might be elements that get pulled out that you never thought of as a strength, right? You're like, oh, I do that. I haven't thought of that, right? So then you feel empowered and excited that like you've uncovered this new layer of you that you didn't really like have in the forefront of your mind before. Two, it gives you verbiage, right? Maybe verbiage that you hadn't had prior to describe what you're good at and what you enjoy and how you function best. And three, it also allows you to communicate and position yourself in a way to, again, like we talked about, leverage your strengths. right? So that you're excelling in your role, you're excelling within your team. Fourth one, I think, is it allows you to appreciate your teammates, right? And their differences and recognize it kind of puts, some people can take it too far and like use a label that they slap on everyone. So I think that's the cautionary tale. But if you're really using it to like understand and have regular conversations around like what does the strength look like, what are its highs, what are its lows, right? What are ways we see it showing up in this person, it really gets a team bonded around like what everyone's good at and how they can pitch in to help in areas of weakness, and actively recognizing, their counterparts. And it becomes like that glue and that gel of positivity and encouragement and recognition, and that's something that's a small win because it's like so readily available, very affordable. I think the pitfall people have is they don't, just like culture, right? They introduce it as like this cool new thing and they don't do anything with it. And then it doesn't become useful because you're not using it and incorporating it into your habits and daily or weekly framework. So then that, another one could be like understanding what makes your culture unique, right? Like everyone can say they have a good culture, but what makes your culture unique? What's kind of like those special sauce elements that you can pull out and are going to really resonate with maybe 20% of people that apply, right? And those are your people. It's like when you walk into a room and you meet someone, and you're like, oh my God, I'm the same. It's like, and they're just like, it's your person. You're like, oh my God, we're just on the same wavelength. We have really similar experience, or maybe like a similar sense of humor, or like, whatever it is that connects you. And again, cautionary tale is like, that doesn't mean you're looking for everyone that's the same, right? And so we're not looking for photocopies of ourselves. Like that's not helpful. We need diversified strengths and personalities and backgrounds, but there's like elements that should be unique to your culture and therefore resonate with people. And so when you're putting it out there of like, hey, we do this, or we really feel this way, there's some people it's going to turn off. There's some people that are going to feel neutral. And there's like that 20% of people that are going to be like, oh my gosh, that resonated so strongly with me. Here's why, right? Like those are your people. And that's a small action, but a big win because then you're attracting and filtering without even trying the people that really resonate with the culture you're trying to build because you've taken just a moment to like truly identify what makes it unique. I want to give you a pause to respond because I've been doing all the talking, but I have a story I want to follow up with on that one that's kind of funny.
Okay, I can't wait to hear your story then. Yeah, I think that yeah, a small win is when you go through the some of those exercises that you mentioned, like you do see the immediate result of it. Like you do, like it does click with you immediately. Because a lot of times, culture or the way that your people work, the results are very tangible, but the act of how it all happens is kind of intangible, or at least the ones that are most successful, because you can't build out processes for culture. I mean, you should have a framework and you should have a process in place, but it can't be a rigid policy, because, everything that we have seen with our clients and successful workplaces is that things need to be a little bit fluid. That's when
Yeah,
people do their best work.
they should be genuine and organic, but people sometimes I think fluid means it is what it is. It'll happen, right? Like, and it doesn't. It's like going to the gym, right? Like you have to be fluid. You can't be like, I have to work out every day at this time, and if I don't, I'm giving it all up and it's a fail. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's not how life goes, right? You have to be somewhat fluid with yourself. Like, okay, I missed it today, but you know what? I'm gonna pick it up tomorrow, right? And I'm not gonna let get myself get discouraged and drop it all together because I had this setback or this miss, right? I'm just gonna keep adapting and going through. And that's just life. And so it's the same with culture, right? Like you don't get like a fit body from not going to the gym at all. Like you don't get a amazing culture by not doing anything intentionally about it. But like you said, it's not this is our culture now. Everyone needs to do this in this way. Like, no, it's like, let's get an idea of what our culture is organically. Let's find some areas of where we'd like to improve it, right? Because we're all trying to improve. And let's set some like intention behind it and make sure we're building it into the processes maybe we already have, or setting some new intentions or ideas or practices that help us build those habits in the areas that we're not as strong. So I think the word fluid is a really good word to use. I just don't want it to get misconstrued as like, we don't have to
Yeah,
do
and
anything.
more what I was saying was around like the policy behind it. Is you can't have
Mm.
rigid policies for things because what we've always seen is that people perform best when they're given, a little freedom and a little autonomy,
Oh,
structure.
are you
So,
talking about like over policizing?
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
when it comes to culture, like you need to have your defined behaviors and you need to have like how those defined behaviors apply in a daily a daily interaction. But those are used for decision making, right? So you can't write a rigid policy on how to make decisions. You can
right,
an understanding and gain buy-in on how we think and what our values are and what the foundation is, and let people make their own decisions because that's where you get the competitiveness and you get the innovation. Um,
right.
but
That's
the whole point of me saying that is it's hard to quantify, right? When things are fluid like that and things are autonomous like that, it's hard to quantify like where are things happening. And so you see the result at the end, but in between it's a little bit more difficult to get those small wins. And so the small wins are like those interactions, right? Because when someone makes a decision or when you have a conversation with a coworker and things click, like that's an immediate small win, right? Where
right.
where you're in front of someone and you're like, oh, like we both get it and we both know what
Yeah,
to
you're
do.
in sync.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
you're in sync without
that comes from
words.
like the framework, knowing the framework,
Yes.
how we're supposed to be operating and what the expectations are.
And that's the policizing that's not happening, right? And that's the piece, like there, that's quintessential is the framework of defining the behaviors you want to see. When I see companies over policize, is because it always boils down to fear and lack of trust. Someone's done something at some point in time, and they were uncomfortable dealing with that individual or a group of individuals, right? And so what they end up doing is they end up over policizing to try and map out every scenario and break down on a granular level how people should be behaving. That takes so much energy. And for really good people that just get your culture, and those are the ones you want to attract, that's going to feel restrictive and stifling, right? So then you end up repelling the people that can operate more autonomously and attracting the people that need that level of granular detail to know how to function on a day-to-day basis. And that is the opposite of what most people want when they over politicize, right? But that's what they get. And so what you have to do is you have to really define what behaviors you want to see and find those people that, like I said, that resonate with those behaviors. And so you're not having to dictate every little thing because a lot of it is going to be either common sense to those particular people, right? Not everybody, but those particular people, or like just part of their nature, right? Like there's people that just naturally look for ways to help beyond their job description. Not everybody, but if that's in someone's nature, it's in someone's nature. Can it be trained? Sure. It's going to take a lot more effort on both parties, right? But like, why not find people where that's more organic? If that's what you need, especially in like a small business, for example, where there's always needs and a bunch of balls being juggled and like hats to wear and any other cliche I can come up with. But like you don't want to have to find someone that you're trying to mold into stepping into those spaces of need because it's a very lean organization and things are moving quickly and everyone's spread thin. So you want to find someone that just that's their nature. They see a hole and they want to fill it. How can I help? What can I do? Oh, hey, I saw that need and I ran with it. Like that's, and when you have those moments, those are everyday small wins because as a teammate or as a leader, you're like, oh, thank you. That's so nice. That's so refreshing that I didn't have to like think about it for you and tell you and follow up, you know? So that's what I was going to say about my story. We have um we have an au pair. And for anyone that doesn't know what an au pair program is, it's a federal program through the government, obviously federal government. But you're able to bring a young person from another country through the age of 26, between 18 and 26, into your home for up to a year, max 2 years if they decide to extend with you, um, to help care for your children. And it's meant to be an exchange program. And so it can be quite expensive, but childcare in this country is so expensive that honestly, it was pretty much the same cost of us putting two kids in daycare as it was to have an au pair. And for me, it makes a lot more sense to have my kids in my home where I can see what's happening with them and I can interact with them on occasion throughout the day and I have someone caring just for them, right? So that made sense to me. But what it comes with is all these other issues of like hosting a person in your house. And, how they care for your home is not always the same. How they care for your kids is not always the same. There's a lot of responsibilities that come with taking care of children in a home. Like they're supposed to keep up with laundry and picking up after them and helping clean their spaces and helping organize, their lunches and doing their homework and like all these other things. And as any parent knows, it's a lot. It's a lot to maintain all those things. So there's certainly families that can offer like the big home where the au pair has the private room and their own Lexus and like, fancy vacations and all these things. Um, and we are not that, right? And we're very honest about that. And so my recruiting background is like, I know this from experience. When you post a job, you want to post it for that, like I said, select 20% that it resonates with and weed everyone else out. And so I'm not afraid to be brutally honest about my family. Like my kids are hard. They're not easy. My oldest has ADHD, severely impulse control. You have to be super patient. You have to tell them things, 10 times and follow them around, right? Like my 4-year-old has an attitude problem. Like, it's just like, and, they're wonderful little humans, but they're also high energy. They're a lot. And my husband and I are a lot because we're not the most naturally organized and we have a lot of things going on that we're juggling. And we have a small home and we share a bathroom and, so but we're kind. We're kind. We're generous wherever we can be. We really try to bring these girls into our family and take them with us places and show them experiences and do nice things for them wherever we can. And so I wrote a post on these forums on Facebook that was basically that. Like I started with, "We are not for you if." And I just listed off like, you're looking for some sort of luxurious experience of this program. Like, that's not us. We're a humble family. If you're looking for easy kids, that's not us. Our kids are hard, right? Like if you're looking for like all these things, a stipend above X, Y, like, and I listed off all these things. And then I went into, we are for you if, and like you want to have someone that treats you like family. You want a kind family. You want flexibility. You want someone that cares about, you having a positive experience. You like being cooked for because I like to cook for the family and have dinners together. Like this post was so controversial. There's like over 100 people that have interacted with this thing. And I had no idea it would be so controversial. But my point is like, it worked. There were so many people offended and many au pairs offended by my post and like, you're clearly passive aggressive and don't go with this family. They're a bad family and this and that, right? And I was like, okay, like people can feel that way. I know that I'm not. And my au pairs know that I'm not. And anyone can talk to them freely and they are still have a long relationship with us. So, but then a handful of people reached out and were like, sounds like a challenge. I'm up for it, like, or like, yeah, I really love that you're honest. And thank you so much for being honest because people are not. They try to just share the positive things. And then we arrive and it's like all these things we were promised aren't there. And I've been having conversations with that select few people that my message resonated with, and the culture of my family and my sense of humor, right? Because I was poking fun of myself at in the post, and some people did not take that the way it was intended. It sounded maybe, I don't know, blunt or rude, but I was actually like making fun of myself and my kids. And some people were like, I love your sense of humor. Like it's like, yes, those are the people I want reaching out to me. And I don't really care if I'm turning off other people, but like that's the importance of being able to define the essence of like who you are as an organization, what you have to offer, being honest about the good and the bad, right? Up front. Hey, these are things we do really well, and this is what we would expect from you. These are things we don't do really well. And this is if that resonates with you and you can help us improve in that area, you're the fit for us, right? Like all of those things are really, really important when it comes to culture and finding the right people because you'll find that you won't have to over process, right? Or policize. You won't, things will be more fluid and flow more freely, right? Interactions will be more organic. And you can just set a loose framework on being intentional instead of having to work so hard to intentionally create this thing that's filled with people that really shouldn't be there because they're not organically sharing the traits or skills or vision that you want for your organization.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's another, to the point of your story, that's another small win. When you define your culture and your behaviors, you can use that in your marketing and job posting. Because, my first thought when you were saying all that, my first thought was, what if something changed in the au pair industry and all of a sudden there was a shortage of au pairs, right? And your posting is very honest and
Yep.
it's like, here's what's not for you, where, your competitors' postings might not be as honest. And so now all of a sudden, like you're not getting any applicants. And so in that market, like that's when you would want to really hone in on what makes you unique. And that's where I think in order to get the applicants, and I think a lot of businesses fall short of putting what makes them unique because they haven't clearly defined it. They might think they have it defined, but they don't have an application for it, right? And
Right.
so, or they're not using it as a tool, especially, in this case for a small win, using it for your job postings. Because in a job posting, it's not helpful, a candidate's reading 100 different job postings. It's not helpful to say, oh, our culture is fun and collaborative, right? I
Right.
guarantee all of
Same
them,
words everybody uses,
yeah.
right?
Or our culture is flexible. It's like you need to have what's specific to your culture and what sets you apart. And I love what you said about focusing on your targeted 20% and be thinking about like, okay, so we know that 80% of the people that apply to this, we're gonna pass, right? And if you're not passing on 80% of your applicants, then you don't have a defined candidate persona.
Right.
And that's going to filter into not having a defined culture. If you have a culmination of people that, aren't on the same page about, your vision, mission, and values, then that's going to affect your culture and it's going to be very, very hard to manage.
Right. It
So,
is. And that's like I would say in that context, that example, my au pairs are an extension of my culture, right? They're my employees. And so when all these candidates have talked to them, they're like, oh, they say wonderful things about your family. And it's like, yeah, because we practice what we preach, right? Like we put it out there trying to scare people off. And I would not recommend that companies take that approach. I did it as almost an experiment because when I typically post, there are way more au pairs than there are host families. And I end up spending hours and hours of time filtering through hundreds of messages. And it's just so much. And I'm very clear on what I want, right? So I was trying to kind of scare people off hoping the select few would come through. So I wouldn't necessarily say that for an employer brand to do that. But to your point, right? Like especially if there's less candidates than there are companies hiring, you want to position a little more positively, but you do need to identify what's unique, and you should have your employees being an extension of you. Like everyone should interact with your employees and be able to say like, "Oh my gosh, this people first is like this, right? Because I've interacted with so and so and I've interacted with so and so, and they're always so responsive and really collaborative and like very helpful, and they go above and beyond. Like everyone should be an extension of your culture. And if they're not, that's a problem, right? You shouldn't have to, like, I shouldn't have to call up my au pairs and be like, hey, so I really need you to say this thing because I need people to know that this is what we do. And like, I literally didn't say a word to them except get their permission to turn their phone numbers over. And I was like, tell them whatever you want. Be as honest as you need to be. And every single person came back and said, they both said, you were this, you were that, you were wonderful, blah, blah, right? Like, I don't have to control that situation anymore because I know they're an extension of my culture, of my family, right? Same thing, I don't have to control how my employees interact with my clients or our clients or people because they're an extension of our company and our culture. And I trust because we've done the work and we're careful about who we hire and who we fire if they don't fit, right? That they are going to operate the way I would want them to. And that the mental load that gets reduced is immense. And the physical load, right, like of time and resources and energy that gets reduced is immense. And guess what you're freed up to do? Actually focus on what you want to,
Yep.
right? Your job, growing your
Focus on
company,
your
whatever
job.
that is.
Focus on your job and not the BS.
Right. And not the BS. Forget the
So that's yeah,
bullshit.
that's a big win, but it's also a small win on a day to day, is that you
The
get to
small day to day.
yeah, you
Yeah.
get to see that people can operate autonomously.
Yeah. And it equates to a really big win.
Yep. So, okay, well, I think we got some good takeaways.
I hope
Um,
so.
yeah, the daily
This is
interactions. Daily interactions are a small win. Using it as a tool for your job postings. I mean, there's a ton more that we
strengths-based.
yeah,
Yeah, we could go on and on, but we're trying to keep these short and sweet. So we
yeah.
never introduce ourselves. Still,
People
I
know who we
mean,
are. We're famous in Japan.
famous.
Um, we
HR and other tomfoolery, Will Kruger and Alex Badman with People First.
yep.
Um, we
We
keep
still need
saying it's a
to
working title. It might end up just being a working title forever.
yep, we need a
But
signature sign off.
we do.
Some cool catchphrase like, you know, like it, love it, get more of it next week.
Oh boy. Oh no.
I thought of that on the spot.
Yes, I can tell. We'll work on that for next time.
All right. Yep. Tune in next time to see what it is.
All right.
See ya.